continuing our study of God is Sovereign. I was a teacher for special ed for small children, so I'm a little more interactive than a Zoom meeting. And so I'm going to ask you, without I hope we're getting in each other's space, to kind of participate with me today. So to start off with, who wants to just yell it out? What is sovereign? What is sovereign? God is sovereign. What does that mean? All powerful, completely in control, right? And I'm repeating it for Zoom, but also it was a trick for deaf students. No one else in any universe is as powerful or more powerful than God. Oh, y'all are good. Anything else? Amen. God is for us. Very good. Does things for the good of his people and for his will. So that's what we've talked about for several lessons. And it is, I don't know, I tried to write it big, and then when I sat down, I thought, well, that's not very big. But you said it over here. God is completely sovereign. He's infinite in wisdom. He's perfect in love. And what that, again, I'm taking it all back to the special ed young children's thing. For those of us who need the extra reinforcement, it reminds me of my dad. If he said it, that was it. He was the boss of our house. And if we didn't like it, if we argued, if we cried, if we pouted, if we, fill in the blanks, still didn't matter. And that's kind of the way it is with God. He's all powerful. And if he says it, if he does it, we can kind of get mad and pout and wish it was different, but we aren't the boss. And it also reminds me, though, the next two parts, that it's not as harsh as it sounds, because in love and in wisdom, he does that. He loves you, he loves you, he loves you, and he's so wise. And it reminds me of my granddaughter, who's 2, and me. Some days she wants something like, say, scissors. And I'm thinking, no, you don't get scissors. Oh, she cries, she stomps, she pouts, she slaps. You've been there with a 2-year-old. She still didn't get scissors. I'm still wiser than she is, and I still love her. And I mean, God certainly is wiser than that. But, that kind of gives me a little way to look at it. Throughout this study, we have used over and over again, and today as well, all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose, Romans 8:28. And then we leave out verse 29, but it basically says that we might become more like Christ. And then the other verse, I think it's Isaiah 55:8-9, about God's thoughts are higher than our thoughts, his ways are higher than our ways, as far as the heaven is from the earth, which if you think in billions of light years, that's pretty far. He's that much smarter than us. And so what I see as problems or troubles, he sees in an entirely different way, and I can't even understand how he sees it. So keeping those two verses in mind is where we're going today. Now, our specific lesson today is where you're going to have to think, and I always hate when people say that, because it would be so much easier to sleep through the next half hour. However, you're going to need to really analyze and think within yourself, and it's specifically to you, okay? And the theme today is that God made you uniquely you. Everything about you is just about you. No two people are exactly alike. And so I did this cute little unique up at the top there, because you are unique, like a snowflake, like a thumbprint. No one's like you. Even identical twins have variants, differences between themselves. So thinking about yourself, and I won't ask you to share only because we're not in a circle. So you can be glad we're back in rows. I want you to think of you specifically, yourself, and your own body, personality, likes, dislikes, whatever. And I want you to think of 5 things that you really like about yourself. And if we were sharing, it might be different. So since you don't have to share, you can say whatever you want in your mind, right? So things that today are true. So I don't want you to say, well, in 3rd grade, I won the spelling bee, because that's a long time ago. But what happened? Okay. So as you think of this 5 absolutely marvelous things about yourself, I want you to kind of put your fingers up. And when you get to 5, let me know. So we'll give you, some time to think. Are you ready? Here we go. 5 things you like about yourself. This could be long. Look at y'all. Okay, girls, you've got something. Okay, this side of the room is really thinking you guys are going to have to kick it up. Okay, that's a lot of us. I don't know that that's all of us. Oh, it's behind her head. That's it. If you're short, get it way on up. Okay, this may have been hard. I don't know. I feel like as Christians, we're taught that God resists the proud and he gives grace to the humble. So sometimes it's harder to think could do it faster about somebody else and slower about me. Okay, now conversely, I want you to do the very same thing, except instead of the 5 awesome things about you, I want you to think of 5 things that you would trade off. If you could trade and you don't like X, Y, and Z, 5 things you would want to get rid of. Oh, that was fast. She had those from last time. And aren't you glad we're not sharing, right? Okay, a few of you. This side, okay, now this side's on the bad. I've got that. Okay. Y'all are so sweet. Thank you, ladies. I know this is kind of first grade stuff, but anyway, I really want you to think of you today. So now you've thought of your 5 good and your 5 less than good. And this is a lesson that probably would, when I first read it, I thought, oh, I better get down to Lubbock Christian Junior High because those ladies need it. Y'all look like you've got it together. We've been through this a couple of years before. So I don't know, when I say there's not a lot of new things today that I'm going to teach you, it's more a reminder. But then I kept thinking and I thought, well, I'm going to be 60 in June and I don't know that I have it all together. So maybe I'm speaking more to me than y'all. So there may be nuggets that you can get. Obviously, you have lived a life with whatever God gave you. He gives us personality, our skills. He made us female rather than male, our height, the gifts we've got, our physical features and characteristics, your traits, your abilities, your temperament, your mental ability, your talents. And he also gave us burdens, because the point of this lesson is he gave us a lot of good stuff, and you maybe had 5 things, but he gives us things that we didn't want. And some of them are insignificant enough. Like I wanted my dad's thighs because he was really thin on the thighs. And I got my mom's thighs. I wanted long, sleek black hair and did not get that. So, we may not have gotten the physical thing that we wanted, but all of us are up and walking and moving. So that means he gave us, some help. But on the hard things, like I've got several friends who have been paralyzed in various ways from accidents since our teenage years, and we're about the same age. And yet I'll see them on Facebook making sweet comments and happy comments. And even though their life went a whole different path than they thought it would, they're still seeking the good in life. And I know since you're here at this class, that's what you're trying to do as well. God gave us, some of us, widowhood or loss of child or never having children. Mother's Day just came and everybody, it used to be about the mother, and now it's about everybody who didn't get to be a mother too, which is awesome because those people have been kind of pushed to the side. God gave you whatever good and bad you got. He wanted it for you. And that's what we really have to learn today. God, well, many people struggle to accept themselves as they are, even at our more mature age. But the book says that God loves you and he wants to glorify himself through you. So self-acceptance is our goal. And it is basically trusting God for who I am, flaws and all. And so I feel like to have made it this far, we have accepted ourselves, but now comes the flaws and all part of it. Because maybe I could have sat in the floor when I was 20 with my granddaughter. Of course, I didn't have one, but and now my knees hurt, and maybe I can't see as well, or can't hear as well. I'm not as active. I can't teach Bible school now because I'm more confined. And as we age, things change. So our thought today is that regardless of whatever today brings, we're still trying to glorify God, serve God, and accept what he has given us. There was a story I read about a woman who wanted to be a missionary, and that was her whole goal in life. And she worked and she studied and she got her money together and she was ready to go, and a bad accident happened. And she was never going to be out of bed now. She's bedridden, right? So you would think, well, that's sad. Oh, well, done with that, Well, her brother and his wife went in her place. And so what she realized she could do was pray. And she prayed and she prayed and she earnestly prayed and she always prayed and she specifically prayed. And his ministry, while God blessed it, obviously, because it was God's ministry, but he was very successful. They were successful in the mission field, but part of that was attributed to her prayer. So even a woman who couldn't live her dream like she had wanted was able to help in a dream. There's always a dream we can stick into and plug into. God created each of us uniquely, again, that cute little thing, to fulfill the plan he has ordained for us. He's looking at what we are and what we do. And this, well, I need to stop and give you some Bible stuff, right? It's a Bible class. God creating us uniquely. This is from Psalm 139, and this is the biggest verse that our author used in the chapter. For you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them even came to be. From Job 10, your hands shaped me and made me. Remember that you molded me like clay. Did you not clothe me with skin and flesh and knit me together with bone and sinews? Psalm 119:73, your hands made me and formed me. Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, this is God speaking to you, or really Jeremiah, but I'm taking it to me too. I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Psalm 139:14, I will praise you because I'm fearfully and wondrously made. So sometimes we know all this, or I guess every day we know all this, but when it comes to like the missionary girl and her dream wasn't fulfilled, we have to then look, kind of look around and say, why, God, why did this happen? It doesn't seem fair. And like how we started it, we can be mad, we can pout, we can cry and whine and ask God, why are you in charge and you did it like this? I didn't want this. But a better question I learned when I was in Grief Share, my husband passed away unexpectedly 3 years ago. And, there's a path you didn't think you would take. And I know you've all had stuff like that. So I'm not asking you to remember me as a widow, but it is a different path than I was expecting because we were fairly young when he died. And so Grief Share, they said, everybody asked why. Why did so-and-so die? Why did my mother die? Why did my kids die? Why did this happen to me? But the better question to ask is what now? I like that. Y'all are so serious. It's true. What now? Okay, I'm a widow at 56. Now what? What do I do now? I'm a divorcee. What do I do now? I lost my child. What do I do now? I can't walk. What do I do now? God, help me. And so the Lord calls each of us continually and often in order to embrace that call. We must always take a leap of faith and trust God's timing and his ability to help us live out our calling, regardless. And that's from the book. Again, going back to Romans 8:28, all things work together for good. This is another aspect y'all know, but because we are all different and we are all asked to live out our calling, how do we do that? How do we mesh it all together? And thankfully, we don't have to know exactly. God has the plan. Yes, because he's infinite in wisdom and I don't have to be the boss of this. So in Romans 12:4 and 6, and I know you've heard this kind of scripture, but it says, for just as each of us has one body with many members, and the members do not all have the same function, so in Christ, we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. We have different gifts according to the grace given to us by God. So God gives you your gifts. We put them together in the body, which 1 Corinthians 12, almost the whole chapter speaks of this. I'll sum it up. But the body has many members, but we work together. Now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. For God wants us all working toward the good. To one, there's given through the Spirit a message of wisdom, to another knowledge, to another faith, to another gifts of healing, to another miracles, to another prophecy, to another distinguishing between spirits, to another speaking different tongues, and still to another interpretation of tongues. All these are the work of one and the same Spirit, and he distributes them as he determines. Still not my choice. Still not fair, but that's what it is. We accept that God gave us the good with the bad. This is from our author of the book, and I know some of y'all have it, but it's Jerry Bridges, and it really is good. And really, if you want to break it down to one sentence, it's God's in charge and you can go with it. That's the way I've broken it down. But he says, this is a little more eloquent, there has to be in our lives a delicate balance between godly efforts to improve our situation and godly acceptance of those situations that can't be changed by us. So God gave you the basic skill set, and it's up to you through your lives to make it better, to go the best you can. I know you have. And then, though, when we hit the brick wall of maybe aging and we're not able to do something physically that we used to could do, then we accept, well, this isn't going to change. Or like my friends who are paralyzed, it is what it is. Now what? Not why. Now what? What do I do now? There is, when I was in college, I studied human development. I was at LCC one year, loved it, didn't want to come. My mother made me come. I was ready to start life. And I think her name was Linda Cash. Don't quote me on this because it's been a long time. But home ec, and I didn't really know what home ec. It was different in high school than it was in college. And college had all these great ideas and all this new philosophy, and I was loving life. And she just made me want to be a home ec major, which I was. And then I was switched over to education of all ages. But Erickson is a psychologist that we learned about in her class, and he taught on human development. And I know all of y'all have done child development or heard of child development from conception to at least 20. We could almost all go, well, 15-year-olds will do this, 2-year-olds do this, newborn babies do this, that kind of thing. But then it drops off. Once we hit 20, we are there, right? So he actually thought, no, that there are still stages for us to continue through our lives. And having looked at our group, I'm guessing ages here, but he has, say, from 20 to 40, he thinks that your most important job, the stage that you're in, you're still living your life and doing your own thing, but you're looking for intimacy. And that could be in the form of a spouse, children, your close group, your tribe. You're looking to form the people that you want to be associated with. And if you don't meet that goal and you don't find your tribe, the bad thing that can happen is you're in isolation. And you could probably think of people that happened to. Hopefully not us, because we're with a tribe. Yes, Christianity gives you a good tribe to be with. Well, then the next stage is middle adulthood, and that is from 40 to 65. So that hits some of us, or all of us. I don't know. Y'all look young. We'll see. The age, yes, I'm middle adult. And I like the way he names that middle adult, right? So parenting is the most important thing that people are working on there. Okay, that sounds fun, but 40 to 65 is kind of old. You know, I think of parents as 20 to 40 maybe. But what this means and refers to is that you as an adult are doing something to parent the younger generation. So you may be doing it as a mother, an aunt, a sister, a mentor, a teacher, a grandmother. You're looking, whatever your vocation and what all your unique skills are, you're using those to bring forth a better next generation. And so that's the stage some of us are in. And then he kind of went with the classic retirement age of 65. From 65 to death, he calls that, are you ready? Maturity. Yes. Since I'm not 60 yet, I'm not mature. So that explains a lot. 65 to death, typically you are retired, and this stage is the one I kind of wanted to focus on. You are reflecting on your life, and you're hopefully coming to acceptance of your life. Now, there could be parts you didn't like, parts you didn't do right, parts you want to do over. And this is a time period also to make amends, to set things right, to connect with people you had not connected with in years. Time to really look at your accomplishments, your achievements, and make good on them, so to speak. And that's the stage many of us are in, and if we're not, we'll be there. And it also gives you a chance to prepare for death in a positive way. And I would say, although when I say things in a group, who knows, you may not feel this way, but because we're all in church, because we probably believe in God in heaven, we have a better view of death, I think, than the general public. If I just walked out on the street, there is a lot of fear surrounding death. And if you don't believe that, look at what happened with COVID. I mean, we all got scared and went home and locked the door. And, so there's ways that even Christians were a little bit nervous because we don't really know exactly how it's going to happen. We just know it's going to be good in the end. But people without Jesus, I mean, there's some fear around death. And one of the parts of this stage, if you don't come through that stage successfully, you're in despair, you're in depression, and you're in a lot of fear, which are all things we don't want to be in. So we want to head toward, we want a sense of ourselves as a fulfilled person, as one who had a good life. And we also want to actually business-like prepare for death with wills and financial plans and things like that you set in place. And as someone who went through that with both my parents and my husband recently, there is so much to end a life. There is so much business work you've got to do in banking and wills and lawyers, and it's just really hard. And so the more you can leave it for the next generation, more organized and prepared you are, the better it is. So that's something for y'all to think about. That's not, that's free of charge just for you, but for a person in that age group, you may find it necessary to reflect and analyze on your accumulations and on your achievements. And so that is one thing that we want to be doing. God has plans. Well, let me first ask, do you think that God has a will and a plan for your life? 100%, I bet, right? Do you think that it ended at 50, age 50? Do you think it ended at 80? Do you think it ends? No, right? That's kind of a duh question. But I feel like sometimes again, when I say we, I mean me, every time you change in life or something changes for you, maybe health or maybe a move, or maybe kids leave or kids come or grandkids, whatever big change comes in your life, you may even subconsciously think, well, I used to teach Bible school. I don't have to now. I used to read my Bible every day, but I'm really busy now, or whatever it is you think. That's not the way God sees it. Every day you're alive is a day that you are to be seeking God's will, looking for God's will, serving out God's will. Now, if this is the point in the sermon where I tell you I'm preaching to the choir, because I see that in y'all, but it's just a subtle reminder that we need to be looking always for God's will. I don't know if she's here because I can't tell in a mask, but when Teresa talked about BSF, I'm also in BSF, and we did the book of Genesis. Well, so you're probably familiar with parts of it. Jacob is the one I want to focus on, because Joseph, he gets all the good publicity, but his father Jacob was kind of a rascal. And so he was a twin, and daddy liked the other twin, and Jacob and mama, and they always were deceiving and lying and being a little mess. So he gets into so much trouble with Esau after stealing the birthright and the blessing that he has to leave and run for his life. And he goes to Laban's house, falls in love with Rachel, tries to marry Rachel after 7 years of hard labor, gets Leah, didn't want Leah. You know, you remember the story. He has both finally Rachel. I'm condensing this quite a bit. Rachel and Leah, and their two maid servants or whatever. So he's quite an active young man. He has at least 12 sons and one daughter. And to me, it just seems like it was a mess. It was a hot mess. And as you read Genesis, you're like, really? This is who you picked to name Israel after? Like this guy? He's a mess. Well, the good news for Jacob is, and you know this, he was reunited with Joseph and he moves to Egypt and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of his life, he gives a blessing, which is Genesis like 48, 49. And it's a blessing and a curse altogether, but he tells each son something about themselves. And it's really something only he could have known through the power of God, because it wasn't like, right now you're a so-and-so. It's like, but in the future. So he's foreseeing, which gives us the implication he was so close to God by the end of his life that it turned out better. So Jacob ended well, much better than his beginning. He used his words to bless at the end, whereas in the beginning he used his words for deceit, which begs the question to us, how do we use our words? Because I may not be able to physically teach Bible school anymore, but am I building up people with my words? Because everybody, for the most part, can talk. Are we using it in that way? Jacob ended with thankfulness to God. He grew from a young man who practiced deception to an old man who stood on the truth. And God filled his old age with unexpected joy. And that gives me a lot of hope. Every life stage offers a unique opportunity to experience God's specific blessings. The end of life can bring great challenges and lots of loss. You may have loss of your independence, your physical strength, loss of your peers, loss of your loved ones, possibly loss of financial security. The last year has given me loss of the roots our country faces, because we're in such an upheaval. It feels like they're throwing our statues over, and it's just a weird time. But we need to face that all with God every stage. And if not, you're going to be full of anger, resentment, bitterness, and that's not the way we want to end. We want to end really on a high note. Whatever your age, here's a question. Will you acknowledge God's presence and his faithfulness? Will you follow God's will? And yes, I know y'all are all saying yes. So here's the thing though. I always thought of God's will, because we're taught this from the beginning at church, that God has a will. He has everything kind of mapped out. And because I don't get to hear God's voice quite as loudly as Jacob did, I was like, what if I mess up? What if I marry the wrong person? What if I do the wrong job? What if I go to the wrong church? What if? And it was very scary. But the new thing for me that this chapter did bring out is God is more like the Psalms 23 God. And coming from Lubbock, which is my hometown, I don't have a lot of shepherd understanding. They could have put a cotton field story in. I might have got it. Maybe a ranch. I don't know. But a shepherd, I don't know. But this author says that God's guiding and leading is more like a shepherd. So while I'm frantically looking for God's will, hoping I don't mess up, he's gently pushing me over, leading me over, guiding me to the paths of righteousness, leading me to the still waters. And I may not even be aware of it, right? It's a gentle experience that gives me less responsibility for finding it and gives God the responsibility for shepherding me around, even when I mess up. And it reminds me of a time I was looking at a different lesson I did on finding God's will. The verse, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. In the old days, I guess the better ones, I don't know, would put like little lamps on their feet. I don't know how they did this. I've read this. Could not be true, but anyway. And they're walking along. And if you picture yourself in the old days without the lamps and the lights from the city, and you're in complete darkness, except for these little lights on your feet. And as you go, a little bit more is lit. You see a tiny bit. You don't see the whole thing. It's not like daylight where the sun's shining and you can see. It's like night and darkness, and every little bit, God's just showing you a little bit as you go, step by step. So when I say, God, show me your will, he doesn't lay it out from now till my death and I'm walking through it. It's like, well, today is this. Today is this. Today is next step, next step, next step. And so it's a gentle and a slow step-by-step process for God's will. And that's something for all of us planners who want to put it in the date book for about the next 12 years. It's like, no, I need more than just a second. God can lead and guide you. The next question obviously would be how, because he's not going to usually talk to us. That would kind of freak me out, but I sort of some days want it. You're praying and you're thinking. And the problem with thinking is what part is my voice and what part is God's voice? Because I can tell myself a lot of stuff and I'm like, that couldn't have been God. I don't know. Maybe it was God. But God, the author says, God guides our minds as we think. He doesn't really play games with us. And so it's up to us, and I did write this down. We're praying for wisdom, clarity, and discernment. And probably y'all are already praying for that. But right after my husband died, I was just like, I don't know what to do next. I don't know how to do this. And those were the three things that I settled on that I thought I really needed. So maybe that'll help you. I don't know. We need to consider that, and I have so much stuff we could stay on into the night, so y'all better pray I shut up pretty quick. When we think of, okay, here I am, Lord, what's my mission? What's your will for my life? Sometimes we do like the girl think, oh, I've got to be a missionary to Africa. This is a lot. Well, really, your mission, specifically today, your baby little next step to take is this. It says our mission is where our feet hit the ground. And I saw that in one of my Bible studies over at First Baptist. They had it written out. And I was like, what does that mean? Oh my gosh, I get it, right? It's not like I have to go far, far away. God might call me that way. But what am I doing today with my baby, with my daughters, with my women I see every day, with the people on Facebook? I don't know if y'all are on Facebook, but in the beginning of the COVID, oh my goodness, people were just spewing out hate and mad and argue. I was like, ah. It's calmed down now, I think, because the first two things I opened today had good Bible thoughts that actually went with the lesson. So, but our ministry is, at least to start with, where are we today? What are we doing today? Where will God lead me this second? Here are some questions for us to think about as we close. Do you speak words of hope and life to those in your circle, your friends, the people you're with daily? Are people energized or drained after spending time with you? And I bet we're not supposed to think about others today. It's all about me. But really, can you think of someone that when they leave, you're just like, oh, heavenly days. I don't want to hang out with her. And we don't want to be that person. Are you making the most of each day? Has God surprised you by accomplishing his will in a way that you didn't see coming? God often accomplishes his will through seemingly uphill struggles rather than downhill strolls. And who doesn't want to stroll instead of a struggle? But that's not, that's rarely how God works. I think we learn more in the valleys than the mountaintops. And some of y'all spoke to that in your other lessons. And I want you to think on one last thing when we leave. Gosh, I could still keep going, but I won't. Here is a verse, Philippians 1:6. God began doing a good work in you, and I'm sure he will continue it until it's finished when Jesus comes again. Philippians 1:6. So what can I do today that will take me in the direction of a better tomorrow? Keep asking until you hear an answer. And once you hear it, do it, stand up, and to reference the parable, take up your mat and walk. And that's Max Lucado. God will show us slowly, step by step, if we seek him.